At a really high level, what's easy to understand is that the NFT embodies the right. Okay, well, that's cool. Well, which right?
Good morning, this is Steffy and welcome back to the Financial Fox, investing and innovation ideas with a twist. Today we are going to discuss NFTs and intellectual property, which is something very important and anybody in the NFT market should really understand very well, because it is all about content creation, and you need to know, that your creativity and your product are protected. So I will be joined by Erich Spangenberg, founder and CEO at IPwe, a global patent platform and market which has recently entered into a partnership with IBM to develop the next generation NFTs for corporate patents. So we are going to discuss tokenization of intellectual property, NFTs, patent as a new asset class, AI, blockchain, and how new technology can overcome the challenges of a human-driven marketplace and create a new IP trading market. But before we go into the episode, remember that I'm not a financial advisor and any content here is for informational purposes only. And the last thing, if you're not subscribed yet to our channel, make sure that you press the subscribe button and follow us on social media to stay up to date with news and the latest interviews. We have also released a new website, so you can go and check it out and subscribe there as well for our monthly newsletter. Let's kick this off. Hi, Erich. How are you?
Hey, Stefania. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Erich?
I'm doing great. Where are you today?
Well, I'm based in London.
Okay. I'm in Paris.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I haven't been there for a long time, but
Nobody's been anywhere for a long time. But,
Listen, I'm fascinated by NFTs. I've been looking in the space for quite a while now and see all the amazing applications which are not only in arts, but they are, in fashion, anywhere basically. And obviously, the problem of intellectual property come up quite often because, people ask themselves, when I buy an NFT, what actually I'm buying? I'm buying the right.
What a great question.
The right to use this image, this piece of art, or I can't use it for commercial purposes, and I'm only buying the right for this image to be projected in my place, for example. So I think these are big questions, and you and your company is doing something completely innovative in the space. So maybe we can start with you giving a little bit of information about your background and what IPwe is doing, and then we can go into the partnership with IBM and explore everything about an NFT patent.
I'd be happy to. So look, by way of education, my background is in math, finance, and economics. And I also got my degree at the London School of Economics, like I know you have one from, and then ended up in law school, long story. But I practiced mergers and acquisitions law, and then ended up in high yield investment banking, and then ended up in telecom. So how I got interested in IP was when I was at this telecom company, we got sued for patent infringement all the time because it turned out we didn't invent the thing that we were selling and selling lots of. So we got sued constantly. So I was in business development at the time, and that was my first, I was 33 or 34 years old, the first time I ever read a patent. I had no idea what they were. I went through law school and ignored it. And as I started to dig into it, I realized that business people didn't really understand what it was. And what they were doing was that they were delegating to these people called lawyers, who are awesome, except for their advocates, right? They're paid to take a position, and who's ever paying them, that's the position they take. And so that's not really, so that creates this incredible arbitrage opportunity. So from 2003 to like 2013, I leveraged that opportunity. And then I got heavily into predictive analytics in 2007. And the basic problem in predictive analytics is it's just a field of AI, is that you can never get the data you want to get your hands on. It's never clean. So fast forward to 2000. 2017, October 15th, I think, 17th maybe, I see this thing called CryptoKitty. And when it first came out, I was like, all right, this is not really my thing, having a virtual cat and taking care of it. But I was like, my God, this has huge implications for intellectual property. Like, this is going to start, it's creative. I mean, it happens to be little cats, but it could be anything. And so that was when I first started to think about it. About a month later, 2 months later, actually, I was in Shanghai. And a friend of mine asked me to borrow a couple of $1 million so he could trade Bitcoin. And I really didn't know what it was, but I got into the blockchain side of it. And what I realized was that there was this match between the AI component, where you're always data hungry, and the blockchain piece of it, where there would be really super clean data setting. And I said, okay, there's a way to put this together, and we'll think about it. So this is December of 2017. So 2018 comes, and I'm still looking at your CryptoKitty and just amazed at everything of what's going on, and started to think about how AI could lower the discovery cost, right? The cost of a business person learning about what a patent is or what a piece of IP is about, and the blockchain would lower the transaction cost. So fast forward a little bit further, early 2019, IBM, and this is where the IBM part comes in, invites us as one of the 10 companies to join their accelerator program. And one of the first people that, I think there were 6 of us from IPwe that went. It was half the company at the time. And one of the first people I ran into there was this person who had worked on music for 5 years. They were looking at blockchain applications in music. And I mean, he was brilliant. And every question I had, he said, well, we thought about doing it this way. We thought about doing it that way. The project ultimately never happened, but that was where, between CryptoKitty, discovering actually what blockchain really was, and sort of the working with IBM, I started, my thinking started to evolve dramatically. And January 7th or 8th, I sent an email to this other person at IBM, and I said, hey, we should work on an IP token. I don't think the word NFT had been invented yet, or if it had, I hadn't heard it. And we started to think about what that would need to look like. And over the past 2+ years, as the press release you saw a couple of weeks ago said, we went through and started to work out these problems. And so what did I see? It struck me as odd, not CryptoKitty. CryptoKitty is actually a really good idea, but it struck me as odd that there were these people who were spending a fortune developing these NFT applications, and then they would pick like some obscure art thing, right? Or they would pick an image of LeBron dunking on somebody. And then the piece and this is where, even though I haven't been a lawyer for 25 years, I started to think about, like, what was it that they really got, right? Like, how many people really understand that, like, when you go into an art gallery, even when you buy a real world painting, you don't necessarily get the right to commercialize that. There's all these other attributes. You don't get the right to put it into the next, Disney film. And so I realized that what was happening is that people were buying these, and I'll pick on the NBA. You don't have the right to commercialize that token. You put it on maybe you put it on your Instagram page or something, but you don't have the right to turn around and sell that same image to some other person who will pay you. You paid $200 for it. You can't turn around and sell it for $400. It's just not how it works. And so I attributed that to a couple of things. One, people just didn't understand, right? What at a really high level, what's easy to understand is that the NFT embodies the right. Okay, well, that's cool. Well, which right? Right? That's really that's the question you might want to ask. So what we did was, and we did this, really early on, is we said that NFT has to do 2 things. It has to embody the ownership. And whenever you have something that comes off blockchain, right? So if its genesis is on the blockchain, Bitcoin, a token, whatever, that is easy to track back. But if it's something that comes off of blockchain, whether it's a blood diamond, organic fruit, biofruit, or patents, you have a genesis, or what they call an oracle problem, right? How do you prove that thing that you say is sitting in the NFT really has whatever rights are associated with it? So since we started working with enterprise, our idea is that let's make this look like something that enterprise is comfortable with. So what is enterprise comfortable with? They're comfortable with insurance. So if we do all the steps we think you need to get the patent from the patent office to the owner into the NFT, and we go through and we take all these steps and dot all the I's and cross all the proverbial T's to do that, that's great. And people could say, hey, listen, you know what, IPwe is really cool. They know a lot about IP. They're probably right. But that's not quite good enough for enterprise. So what you do is you introduce an insurance layer, right? Then the other thing is that a lot of this stuff is in smart contracts. And you know, I realize you have a ton of degrees. It actually took me like 5 minutes to get through your LinkedIn profile. But I don't read code. I mean, I read a little bit of Fortran and a little bit of C++, but you know, most of the code I don't read, and most of the world doesn't either. So unless that is translated into something else that I can read, I really don't know what my rights are. But if my rights are governed by that underlying smart contract, you know, I'm at a complete loss as to what it is, and probably share that in common with a very high percentage of the world. So as the reason it took us 2 years to do is that something as simple as title and getting that into the NFT sounds like an inconsequential step, but it's a really important step. And we went through and did that for multiple different things. And what's a little bit different about the way we structured our NFT is that the title, think of it as the title deed, sits at the top, and then below that are certain attributes. So you could have a token that's tied to that NFT that relates to licensing, right? Your right to display it. It could be another one that's related to your right to use it, to commercialize it, to go put it on whatever it is you want to do with it. But we wanted to put that in a context that corporate enterprise would understand. And so we think this is one of these things that goes, most startups always, when they start out, they want to serve, small companies and then work their way up to the big companies. We realized we had to do it the other way around, was get enterprise comfortable with it. And then the rest of the world would get comfortable with it. And that's a big part of the process as to what we're doing.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And I think one of the key elements here is actually you are turning a patent into basically a new asset class that can be traded. And perhaps that is one of the most important elements also for small and medium enterprise, isn't it? Because they are the new fuels of the economy and the technology space. They are the one, they are inventing something new, and they need that to get protected as well, and perhaps traded off in order to improve a wider ecosystem, also populated by bigger companies. You know what I mean? They are not coming up with the innovation because it's coming for the small enterprise that you are serving.
Yeah, no, look, I from just like a philosophical perspective, if we don't come up with a way for SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses, to get credit for their investment in intangibles and intellectual property, they're not going to exist, because a huge percentage of their balance sheet is intangibles, and they can't compete on a cost of capital basis. Google can just get money cheaper than they can. It's as simple as that. Their chances of getting VC financing is roughly the same odds as them winning the lottery. So a big part of what we wanted to do was to get these companies that I think are incredibly undervalued. Not all of them. Some of the stuff is not worth anything. And unfortunately, we have to tell them that. But to get finance comfortable that there's actually value here that they've never previously appreciated, which gets these SMEs financing, which I think is important, because my fundamental belief is that our productivity problems, to the extent that we do have, are actually solved at the SME level. They tend not to be solved at the macro corporate level or the huge enterprise level, much more likely to be solved at the SME level. And the other thing is that we want to give the SMEs visibility so that they can more easily partner, if that's what they want to do, with these bigger companies, so people know what they have. I don't believe the corporations are inherently evil. I mean, some of them are, but by and large, they're not. But it's just hard for them to figure out what these SMEs have, where they might have some unique specialty that the large corporation could benefit from knowing about, and vice versa. the large corporation will have a bunch of stuff in its portfolio that it's doing nothing with, nothing. It's just sitting there, and make it easier for the SME to find it and say, hey, you know what, give me 80, you take 20, and I'll go build this out, and off into the races we go. And everybody benefits in that system. And that complete lack of transparency today doesn't work for enterprise, and it for sure doesn't work for SMEs.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want maybe to walk me through this process, how exactly SMEs can benefit from your market, from your platform, what they get, how you work with them?
Yeah. So here's what SMEs don't need is another bill. Okay. So the first thing we do is we don't charge them $1,000 an hour to solve all their problems. So what we say is that we encourage them to participate. So the information, the AI analytics that we do is available to them for free. And then what we let them do is by and large, companies below $100 million are able to access our platform for free and transact. And only if and when they transact is there a fee associated with it. And more often than not, it's somebody else who ends up paying the fee because they're the net beneficiary. They're the net beneficiary of the transaction. So again, our model it's a success-based model. And we want these SMEs to come on board en masse. What our biggest problem with SMEs is our cost of acquisition. We this is really sad, but we can't do them one at a time. I mean, we have and we do, but in the future, what we want to do is make it easier for them to just sign up and participate. And when we do that, that'll further lower our costs, and we'll pass that along immediately to the SMEs. It's free for them right now until they actually do a transaction. But I would like to get that cost down even further to benefit the SMEs. And frankly, the next big thing you'll see us do after this NFT project is that we'll start financing based upon the strength of their IP as well. And we'll work with both banks, other financial institutions, as well as our own fund to help them get funding based upon the strength of their IP. Not bizarre loan to own situations, but literally where there's tons of research out there that shows that there's a connection between the quality and type of the IP you have and your ultimate chance of becoming what's called a high growth entity. We just need to get more people in finance to understand that. And when they do, more of these SMEs are going to get financing.
But listen, how are you scouting these SMEs?
So look, it's actually cool. So we started out focusing on patents, but our database has 85% plus of the world's patents in it. So we can literally drill down to an individual patent, an individual owner, or the owner could be Honda, and we can figure out what Honda has as well. So we can identify these companies relatively easily.
Fantastic. And then is basically the platform is built, is powered by IBM, right? So they build their platform basically. Together, yeah. I mean, it's obviously
no. Look, I'm laughing. Not because I'm being impolite, please. But yes, I mean, they have been instrumental in what we do and how we do it. And look, it's more expensive to do it that way. But the security, the thought, everything that goes into it is it's enterprise ready, right? And we have to be able to scale. So the frightening part is that IPwe was basically, nobody knew what we were doing for, 2.5 years. And all of a sudden you turn the water on and it starts coming out, in force. You've got to be ready. And the only way we would have been ready is working with somebody like IBM. So they've been absolutely instrumental in what we built and what we're doing.
Fantastic. And listen, talking about this patent as a new asset class, how do you see this market developing and how big you think it is and it can be?
I'll go with the quote from the executive that at IBM. He gave a quote to Bloomberg, I don't know, a week ago or so ago, and it was over $1 trillion. And I agree. So look, the IP transaction market today is somewhere around 180 billion, but back out some of the brand stuff, which is somewhere between 3 and 20%, back out some of the bigger pharma transactions, and it's slightly smaller than that. But the fact that doesn't change is that only 2% of the world's patents transact and only 5% are ever commercialized, it's not because they're all bad ideas. That's not the problem. The problem is the complete lack of transparency, and there's just no way to get visibility into these. And that's what we're doing, is we're increasing transparency. And over history, many markets and many asset classes have developed simply as a result of an increase in transparency. And so it wasn't that IPwe was the first one to have this idea. It's just that it wasn't technologically enabled until a year or so ago. Look at even in 2017, when we first started even thinking about this, some of the stuff that we wanted to do simply wasn't technologically enabled. So we have a partner we also work with called Casper, and they're a blockchain partner. And what they do and how they thought about this is just incredible, and have addressed problems quickly that we needed addressed that 3 years ago impossible to do without throwing, hundreds of bodies at the problem, or 50 bodies at the problem. And that was the thing, that these businesses, other people have had this business idea, it just never scaled. It never would scale, because every time you brought on a new customer, you had to hire 10 more people. First of all, that skill set doesn't exist. And second, all the time, it's expensive. And so you really do have to rely on exponential technologies, and they just weren't ready for prime time until very recently. And we expect that to continue to evolve.
Which sector do you see benefiting more from your solution and services? We mentioned music, but you will probably have a...
Yeah. So look, what I see happening is that IP in general, and when I say IP, I'm talking trademark, copyright, patent, music, and anything intangible. It just behaves differently for the very reasons that you talked about when you came out. People don't realize this, but when you buy the music rights to something, it doesn't necessarily include the rights to then put that into a motion picture. That's actually a different set of rights. And one of the things that's always bothered me was that the original artist or the original innovator, and I'm trying to find a polite way to say this, doesn't always get advantage of. So I think back, I happen to be a big collector of Impressionist art, and the Impressionists didn't make any money, right? The people who traded it the fourth or fifth time, they made a fortune. But the people, so there is a way now, if people choose to do it, to say, hey, I created this thing, and I'm going to keep a 2%, forever in it. That's easy to track. And when it trades above, $1 million or trades above $50,000 or whatever it trades at, you know what? I'm going to be part of that distribution. That was administratively impossible to do 2 years ago. It's not today. So what I'd like to think is going to happen as a result of what we're doing is that it promotes innovation and more people participate in it. So I think that everybody's always like, hey, if you could wave a magic wand, Eric, because you're well known in the IP space, what would you change? And I would change participation. It's the most important thing. More people need to get involved in it, and we need to make it easier and not feel awkward and threatening and use a bunch of big words that nobody understands. So that participation is absolutely key. Between the AI and blockchain piece, that's what we're able to do.
Yeah, I think that the element of transparency and participation are both very important. Just coming to my mind, the version 3 of Uniswap, the decentralized exchange, they came when, they announced the new version. They made clear the point about license. And that was an interesting element, because it is a decentralized space where it's good to have the code public, but at the same time, you want to protect what you have created. So I thought that was, a good something interesting to bring up in the conversation.
And listen, I want to cover something as well, because I always get this question. If you remember way back in 2016, 2017, I'd go to these crazy consensus conferences. And it was all about disintermediation, right? Basically, nobody was going to have a job in a few years, because everything was going to be, it was going to, toast your bagel. It was going to, pick your music and everything. Look, I think that what we're starting to see, and certainly at the enterprise level, and even in the IP space, it actually makes the pie bigger. So by creating more opportunity within that, it creates more opportunity for people to add on value-added services that people really need, that they're happy to pay for. A, they have the money to do it. B, the transactions happen. So as this thing starts to grow, it doesn't put lawyers out of business. It doesn't put innovators out of business. It doesn't put anybody out of business. Some of the low margin stuff may go away, but the opportunity to create higher value apps that sit on top of it are endless. And, we're working with one group, a large accounting firm, and they came to us and they said, hey, if we wanted to identify ESG related patents that, we wanted to then promote to our clients for them to obtain some tax benefit or credit, would you be okay with that? And I'm like, of course, it's free. Lay it right on top. Take the data from us and please go do it, because all that's going to do is grow our ecosystem and grow the entire ecosystem. So again, I think the days of from 2016, 2017, where people just referred to constant disintermediation, they misunderstood what AI was, and they misunderstood what the real power of blockchain is. Yeah,
that's an important point. You said the lawyers are not going to go out of business. So tell me, how do you see the input, let's say, in the process?
I think it changes, right? So the people that they work with, their clients, are going to look to them for higher value services, right? So the busy work that the machine can do, they're not going to be interested in paying the lawyers to do that. But the higher value work, the trend, where judgment's required, we don't have a machine that does judgment yet, and it'll probably be a while before we do. So I think that continues to be value. And like I said, only 2% of them transact, and you've got a $180 billion market. It might not be quite linear, but if you took that up 5 times to maybe 10%, it would have started to approach $1 trillion, and that's going to keep everybody in that ecosystem, busy, including finance people, IP people, and a bunch of other people. So I just see it. I see that growth as a really good thing, and a really positive development.
Yeah. So to close up, give me some timeline and update on development that you are working on with the IPwe. What's we should expect next?
So I think what you'll see next is you'll see more enterprise and university adoption. We'll announce these. We'll announce our primary chain in the next week or so. But I think what you'll see is adoption, right? We just made it easy. We made it easy for them, and that's the key. So this becomes an execution and scale story. But what I want to do is that patents we understood the best, but we have our eye on the rest of the IP market as well. And so you might see us wander into a couple other areas of IP as well.
Okay, fantastic. So Erich, for anybody that would like to get in touch with you, know more about the project, where they should go?
Yeah, so look, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. My email is even on LinkedIn as well. So that's an easy way to find me. But please come to our website. It's IPwe, literally into Papua, whiskey-echo.com. And happy to talk to you anytime.
Fantastic. Okay, Erich, it was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Okay, ciao.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was a really great conversation with Erich, and I think we dive into the problem of IP for SMEs and also the added value that new technology can bring to these small and medium enterprises, which most of the time are undervalued, and their speciality, their IP is not really categorized, is not transparent. So big organization and any other business that want to work with them, they don't know actually what they have got. So being able to actually put on a blockchain, have an NFT that represent a corporate patent is something very important and can benefit all the ecosystem. And any kind of, even the lawyers, they're not going to be kicked out of work, but all the ecosystem is just going to improve and get better and better. And it's definitely a space to watch. So I think IPwe is doing a fantastic job with IBM. Obviously, IBM, They are the leader in blockchain and AI, so a fantastic partner for IPwe. What I will say is just if you are SMEs and you have got a valuable partner, get in touch with IPwe and stay up to date with what technology is doing, because business is evolving and we have to find more way to commercialize and to monetize the assets that we have got, and definitely IP is one of them and is important in any kind of industry. Erich mentioned music, but there is art, there is fashion, there is technology, there is anything, protect your idea. That's something very important. I will see you next time.